Yes,
Okay,
but it's two different. Patterson is a SAC Air Force base,
yeah,
and,
right.
and the other one. Of course, even
My nephew is retired Air Force, and that's where he's living now. And his son-in-law is active, at right there.
okay, yeah, yeah. They had me, and like I say, I didn't. I was hardly in the military. I was working with mainly civilians, and about 80 of us, 80 civilians and 300. 300 civilians and 80 military at most.
I was up
And
there for my niece's wedding 2 years ago, and the reception was on the base. They have a real nice cabin there on a little lake and everything. It was just lovely. But we had to go by the landing strips and all the cargo planes with it. They're monsters, absolute monster planes.
yep, they are. Hey.
Good evening. Welcome to the Lawrence County Museum. We are here tonight to hear about the mammals and reptiles of Lawrence County. Want to give you a little preview of some of the things that are upcoming at the museum real soon. Next week on Tuesday, November the 12th, Ann Edwards is going to be presenting a lecture at our Lunch and Learn. She will be presenting the first salute and the impact of the navies of the American Revolution. This is right along with Veterans Day, which is Monday. On that same Tuesday, that evening, Durant Ashmore will be giving a Revolutionary War lecture on Francis Marion, who is my favorite Revolutionary War person. And I'm sure that I will learn a whole lot more about Francis Marion that evening. On this same week, next week, we've got a full week of scheduled things. On Thursday, November the 14th, the Ann Pamela Cunningham Garden Club will be meeting here at 2:30, and Durant will be speaking at that. He is a landscape designer, and he is going to be talking about the things at Rosemont and the plantation for the Cunninghams, and some of the things that will that they're trying to do to restore the grounds at Rosemont Plantation. We will have the Lawrence District South Carolina Genealogy Society that evening on the same day, the 14th of November, and they will be talking about the Hill and Ross families. The public is invited. And on Saturday, November the 23rd, we will have the opening of the Lawrence District 55 Student Art Show, and it'll run till the end of the year. Mr. Ott's photography is downstairs being displayed, and it will be displayed until we put the student art up on there. On Friday and Saturday, right after Thanksgiving, we will have our Merry Market, and it is from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock on Friday and from 10 till 2 on that Saturday, and that is November 29th and 30th, right after Thanksgiving. So please join us we have a lot of exciting things happening between now and the end of the year here at the museum, and you are more than welcome to come and enjoy the museum anytime, Tuesday through Saturday from 10 till 3. Now let's talk about Mr. Ott. Edwin Eugene Gene Ott is a native of Lawrence County, South Carolina, and resided in the county for most of his life. He received a Bachelor of Science degree in physics from the University of South Carolina in 1968. He joined the U.S. Air Force and served 4 years at the Aero Propulsion Laboratory at Wright Field near Dayton, Ohio, as a research and development officer for prevention of fuel fire and expulsion in aircraft during flight conditions. His work led to the implementation of many safety measures for both military and commercial jet aircraft. In 1972, Gene received a Master's of Science degree in Environmental Systems Engineering from Clemson University. He developed the Water Quality Management Program for the state of South Carolina while working for the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control. For the remainder of his career, he worked as a private licensed consulting environmental engineer. Gene is now retired from that work, but he continues to enjoy his photography, and I'm sure that we're going to enjoy it tonight too. I turn it over to Mr. Gene Ott.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, I've always been an observer of wildlife and the world. I like to think of myself as a naturalist, more like one in the 1700s, and they went around and recorded their observations. I have many interests beyond nature photography. I was one of the many authors of the 3-volume history of Lawrence County called Discovering Lawrence County. And as part of the upcoming 250th anniversary, also known as a sesquicentennial, it's a celebration of the Declaration of Independence, I have been working about 2 years on the search for the location of Hollingsworth Mill, which is mentioned in the records of the 1775 snow campaign. And I wish to thank the Lawrence County Museum for displaying the variety of my nature images on the first floor and for providing me this opportunity to speak to you about the reptiles and mammals in Lawrence County. The museum is a fantastic resource for Lawrence County, and volunteers do much of the work. They have a great staff, but they always need volunteers. I'll discuss reptiles first. Reptiles are relatively easy to find and catch by hand. One of my first memories of reptiles was when I was a small child and had walked with my 2 older brothers barefoot to a nearby store with our nanny who watched over us while my mother and father were working. On the way back from the store, we saw something long and green on the sidewalk in front of our house. Now, the front part of our house was also the site of my parents' business. Our nanny said it was a green snake, and we asked, was it poisonous? And she said, well, it could bite you and it could make you sick. So after a minute, I walked ahead and went up there and touched it with my bare foot. And then I said, it feels fuzzy. And that's really a weird description of a snake. Oops, went the wrong way. Herpetology is a branch of zoology concerning the study of reptiles and amphibians. The term herpetology is derived from the Greek words for creeping animal and knowledge. Reptiles and amphibians are often called herps or herptiles, and all herps are cold-blooded vertebrates. Reptiles have dry skins covered with scales and plates and have claws, unless they don't have feet. The reptiles of Lawrence County are either turtles, lizards, or snakes. Our turtles and lizards lay eggs. Snakes may lay eggs, or they may retain them in their bodies until hatching, somewhat like live birth. Most turtles have hard shells created by modified ribs and backbones. The soft-shelled turtle has a flexible, leathery shell, and box turtles have a double hinge shells known on the bottom called plasterns. And the turtle can withdraw its head, legs, and tail into the shell, the upper shell, and close the plastron tightly for protection. And here are some of the pictures of the box turtles, which I think most everybody's seen. They get killed on the roads, unfortunately, a lot, but people don't seem to run over them purposely nowadays. That was a baby. And here's one showing you how it closes in and out of the shell. The box turtle spends much of its life on dry land. It is not a true tortoise, such as the gopher tortoise found in the sandhills of South Carolina, the lower part. All of our turtles in Lawrence are found near water or in the water, such as wetlands, creeks, rivers, swamps, ponds, and lakes. All of the other turtles are. Box turtles run around, but they also get in the water too sometimes. They are considered semi-aquatic. The only aquatic turtles we have are found in the ocean. Okay. Basking turtles. We see these on logs or rocks around on ponds and rivers and so forth. And there are three main kinds, and here's the pictures of them. The river cooter, yellow-bellied slither that you see, this is actually digging a nest for laying eggs, and the eastern painted turtle. Painted turtle likes a little more marshy areas. Baby basking turtles were often sold as pets in dime stores, and maybe some of you remember these things remember a dime store even, and then they're being sold there. Well, the red-eared slyer is a non-native species that was used mostly in those sales, and sometimes people would turn them loose after they got tired of them. And I've even turned some that people gave me, and we put them in our ponds. And there's one still living there. And so there may be some odd turtles showing up every now and then, and other kinds of species that people have. Sometimes all our turtles will bask in the sun, but the following ones are more often seen moving about or in the water. The eastern mud turtle. That's a small turtle. We see a lot of those. This is a musk turtle, and musk is sort of a perfume, right? The common snapping turtle is our largest turtle. It's called a snapper for a very good reason. The largest one I've found was about 20 pounds, and I think we found it on the streets of Lawrence back when I was younger. They can grow up to 50 pounds or so. And these turtles look very prehistoric. The Gulf Coast spiny soft-shelled turtle. Big name. It's the one with the leathery shell. And they rival the snapper in size. The female of this species can have a shell length of up to 20 inches. They also can inflict painful bites, even though they got that funny-looking mouth and nose there, which they stick out of the water to breathe and kind of stay hidden sometimes. This species is sexually dimorphic in size. The male is much smaller, with a typical adult shell length of about 9 inches. And in the early years of species identification, it was thought that the male was a different species. These turtles prefer moving water, but also can be found in reservoirs like Lake Greenwood. Now, we'll move on to lizards. Lizards have dry, scaly skins. They have eyelids, and they have an external ear opening. Not an ear, but an opening. Most lizards have 4 legs, but some species are legless and look similar to snakes. All lizards native to Lawrence are terrestrial or arboreal, meaning they live in the bushes and the trees. Now, skinks are lizards with small, smooth scales, which give them a shiny appearance. The smallest lizard in Lawrence County is the diminutive ground skink. And 3 species of lined skinks, skinks with lines on their back, can be found in the county. And we'll be showing you, talking with the pictures in just a minute of those. And the juveniles of all these species are very similar. So there's a little ground skink. And just to show you how small it is, it's a tiny little thing. Now, the 5-line skink, and as I said, there's the 5-line skink, there's a southeastern 5-line skink, and then there's a broadhead we'll show pictures of. The 5-line and the southeastern look very much alike, and you have to basically get in and start counting scales and stuff to try to distinguish between them. The female in this picture, this is a female on top with showing her lines. Males tend to get reddish heads, and he's probably pursuing her. Maybe got something on his mind other than hunting. Now, this is the broadhead skink. This is much larger than the others. Although I will point out, I have found 5-line skinks, I think Wynn called them, but they were like 10 to almost 12 inches long. They were enormous compared to the others that we've ever seen. Really oddity. Anyway, this is the female, the adult female, and it's called the broadhead skink, and this is the reason. It's very broad, very bulky body, got that nice red head, and they have a very strong bite. They don't usually break skin, but you know when they've bitten a hold of your finger if you try to catch one. And here's what the babies look like for all of them. And a lot of people think they're different kinds of lizards, but it's just the juvenile or the babies of these. They've got the blue tail, sometimes people call them blue tail skinks, but they're just the babies. And sometimes people call skinks scorpions because they think they can sting you or something, but they can't. No lizard species in the southeastern USA is venomous or can give a sting. Now we'll go on to other lizards. Fence lizards, we see them along fences and dry wood and stuff, and first was the female, now this is the male. The 6-line race runner. Okay. These lizards spend most of their time hunting for food on open ground. They depend on running speed for safety, thus the derivation of their name. And most lizards, when they run on 2 feet, not on 4 feet. And they do too. They lift their front up and they run on their hind legs. Alligators sometimes do that too. All of our lizards, including the swift race runner, if you can catch it, they can be put to sleep by holding them in your hand and just rubbing their stomach. And whether they're sleeping or just saying, well, hey, it's not so bad. I don't know what they're doing, but that's what you can do that to them. It's no big deal. Now, the green anole. This is the lizard sometimes called a chameleon. They change color from brown to green. And green is usually when they're mating and so on, or brown they try to hide. It depends on where they're hiding to. They can change it for shelter or camouflage too. The anole is sort of like maybe geckos, climbing up the sides of walls, climbing on glass. this is the blow up of their feet. And they have little ridges, and they have little tiny hairs growing in there, and those hairs get an electric static charge on them, and it kind of helps their feet stick to surfaces. Now, the anoles, the males, fight over territory, and who's got the good territory to get the good females. And they can get pretty vicious looking. They squeeze their bodies together so that they get more vertical spread on them. They can push up a ridge on the back of their neck. They get darken the backs of their eyes, and then they get in a fight and they bite and scratch and toss the opponent around. And the victor gets to keep the territory. Usually no serious damage results. However, they look very dangerous and were often used in early science fiction movies as dinosaurs. You might have seen some of those. Okay. Slender glass lizard. I've got a picture of this. There's another species called the eastern glass lizard that may be here, but I haven't found it in Lawrence County. I just found this on the edge of Lawrence County. And they're legless, and they look like snakes and are often mistaken for them. Now, lizards have short bodies and long tails. So a glass lizard is no different. It has a short body and a very long tail. And the lizards use their tails to break. They let them break off, and the tail will keep moving. And this is a self-defense. And here's a picture of one. You probably didn't know that bluebirds ate things other than bugs and stuff. They like to eat little ground skinks. And so this one, if you can see it in the picture, there's the ground skink. This bluebird saw it on the ground, came down there and bit it, got a hold of its tail. The tail broke off, so there's a portion that you can barely see in here, but right in there is the end of the broken tail, and there's one. It looks like there's maybe another piece missing, and it's on the ground. So both the pieces of the tail, they're still there wiggling, and the body parts is just sitting there, waiting for the bird, and the bird just doesn't know what to do. Does he drop what he's got and try to get the bigger piece, or what? And while the bird's sitting there fooling around, the lizard crawls off, and that's exactly what this little lizard did. It crawled away, and the bird finally said, okay, I got something in the mouth, and flew off too. It's a very effective means of defense. Now we're going to get on to snakes. Snakes are legless lizards, and they are thought to be evolved from, or legless reptiles, and they're evolved from lizards. Snakes eat their prey by swallowing it whole. They don't chew it up or anything. Some snakes swallow their prey alive, some squeeze their prey to death, and some use venom to kill or pre-digest their prey. And we're going to talk about non-venomous snakes. Before we do that, let me just talk about it. Herpetologists are sensitive about the word poisonous and venomous, because venomous means an animal may actually inject some sort of poison or irritant into another animal, and poisonous means if you eat the animal, the actual animal itself or whatever it is might poison you. So, you know, a rattlesnake and honeybees are venomous. They sting you. Honeybees sting you. I had a friend who died from a honeybee sting. You can eat a rattlesnake safely. They're not poisonous, but they are venomous. On the other hand, saying things like mushrooms, they can be very poisonous. So let's go through. Many of the species in Lawrence County are very small, with the adults being less than a foot or so. These small snake species are often found in our gardens, our yards, and are often mistakenly identified as baby snakes. The DK snake is very common in yards. It eats slugs and stuff like that. They're good to have in your garden. Little red belly snake, they hide most of the time. You have to sort of turn leaves and stuff over to find them. Worm snake, named the worm snake for two reasons. One, it looks like a worm, and it eats worms, earthworms. They're very small. And here's a picture that's in the book that we had for sale down there. Now, a lot of people see this book, and they think maybe it's a religious book, you know. Have you ever heard the term Ott before? It's an English term, O-T-T, means over the top. I sometimes go over the top with my cover, you know, and I did it over top. This is a book about how people and snakes or serpents fit together. This is a picture in the book talking about things, just showing that, yeah, you got a little snake that looks like a worm, but it also has things in it that, like the flags that we have. Well, our cartoons, the famous cartoon right here, well, that's not a snake. That's an eastern glass lizard. If you study it very closely, the cartoon that Benjamin Franklin published this. Anyway, it's a glass lizard. It broke off. There's a picture of a lizard with part of its tail broken off. They don't break in that many pieces usually, but he had to do it because of the 9 colonies at that time. So anyway, that's what in that book, and you'll see some other pictures in this program that maybe came from that. We got a little earth snake, smooth earth snake. Smooth means its scales are don't have any ridges and stuff, and they're shiny. They still be shiny and have little ridges in it, and like this one's called a rough. That's when a rough snake is rough scales. This little snake's named after, it's got a little mark on its head that kind of looks like a crown, so it's a crown snake. Now, there are 2 species of snakes in this group that can sometimes get larger than 12 inches. The ringneck snake is usually a tiny little snake, less than a foot long, and I found one that was about 18 inches long, but it was so old it had arthritis. It clicked every time it moved, the poor thing. The other snake is the scarlet snake. It's sort of like a king snake, but it's not exactly. It lives off of eating eggs of reptiles and lizards, other types of reptiles and things, whatever kind of eggs it can get. That's what it eats. It has the colors you probably have heard of coral snakes and the red, black, and yellow colors. Well, it's got the red, black, and somewhat yellow, not the same shades in there. But it's easily distinguished that you know it's not a coral snake, which there are no coral snakes in Lawrence County unless somebody's brought it in. This is the belly scales that stretch all the way across the body along here. And you can see there's no coloration down there. It's all plain color there. Very easily to say it's not a coral snake. Now, we're going to medium-sized snakes. I'm going to talk about 12 to 30 inches long. The garter snake, not garden snake, but garter snakes, named after garters men used to put on their arm sleeves to hold them up while they're working. And now this is a garter snake, and this snake is really stretched out, so you don't see the lines in there, and sometimes you get confused by identifying. But I watched this snake hunting and it found a toad, and it's now eating a toad. And if you can see, there's the toad's front. He swallowed this. The snake caught the toad by the foot of one of the hind legs. And I said, this snake is never going to be able to swallow this thing. But it took 30, 40 minutes, but it did. and the toad blows itself up to keep from being swallowed, and you can see the skin being squished up in there, but it swallowed the whole thing. That's a garter snake. Hognose snake. These are real interesting snakes. Notice the head looks sort of like a cobra, flattens its head out. Hognose snakes make themselves appear dangerous by spreading their necks and hissing loudly. Most snakes you cannot hear hissing. A hognose snake, you can hear it hiss when it's trying to put on its act. But it is an act. They don't even bite with their mouths open. They bite. They're just trying to make you get away from them, make you think they're deadly venomous, like maybe they're a puff adder or something. You've heard of that being over in Africa or someplace. It's only an act, and it's only act one. If you don't leave it alone or bother it, it dies. The hognose snake's death act is the greatest death scene in all of the animal kingdom, including human beings. When the threat act fails, the hognose snake appears to have a seizure, and that seizure ends in its death. The snake thrashes its head from side to side. It regurgitates. It may even poop. It gets dirt and debris and sticks inside of its mouth, and its tongue flops out of it, and then it dies and ends up being on its back like that. And if you pick that snake up, it's just limp. You can pick it up. Now, it's got one fault in its act, and the humans can figure this out. You put it back down, and you lay it on its stomach down, right the way a real snake would be, a live snake would be. It immediately turns itself back upside down. It'll just do it over and over. But it's a good way of defending, because a lot of predators, when they see something like this happening, they don't know what's happening. Again, most predators don't have so big brains. They don't know what's going on, and they're just kind of thrown off of it. And while that predator's trying to say, do I really want to bother this thing? What is this thing? The snake, they don't have eyelids, so their eyes are always open, and they're looking and they're seeing what's going on. And if that predator turns its gaze away from it, it turns over very slowly, and it crawls away. And that's its defense. And they love to eat nothing but toads. They eat in the daytime and they hunt toads. Okay, there's my green snake that I touched with my foot. And it's called a rough green snake because it's got little scales that are a little rough or got little ridges in them. Beautiful little snake. Mole king snake, we know about king snakes, know them, but this is a mole king snake. As a king snake, we don't see very often, doesn't get usually over 3 feet long, and it's one we call fossorial. That means it lives under the ground or under debris and stuff most of the time, and it's hunting for moles or not moles, but other rodents and other little things, and lizards and stuff in there. Now, large snakes are a category of over 36 inches. And one thing you see a lot in the large snakes is that the juveniles don't look like the adults. The eastern rat snake. It was previously called the black rat snake, as opposed to the yellow rat snake, which was found in the low country of South Carolina. Today, all of these snakes, both colors, are considered the same species, just different color morphs. And then there are colors in between, too. They can be very varied in it. But this is the largest snake we have in Lawrence County now. And many specimens over 6 feet long can be found sometime. And so there they are. They're great climbers. They can climb right up the side of a tree. And one of the things about them, they like to eat rodents. They'll eat birds and lizards too, but they love rodents too. And they hunt by sight, and they also hunt by smell. They're sort of like hound dogs. They can find a trail of a rodent, and if a rodent's using the trail to get inside of your house, the snake can follow that same trail unless the rodent, or like a squirrel, takes a big jump that the snake can't do and loses the trail. It'll follow it and go into your house. That's how they end up into your attic sometime. They're just following where the squirrels or the rodents are going in there. And here's the juvenile, and as I say, you see it's got markings on it. It's got a pattern, and these are when they're born, and for the first year or so of life, they're colored, got this pattern on them, and people think they're different species. And when they're born, which is in the fall, or hatched, they seek shelter immediately because they're tiny little snakes. And if they happen to come to a doorway or door that has a little crack under it, they'll just crawl right under that crack. They're seeking shelter, and they'll end up inside of your house, and people call them copperheads and kill them and so on. But that's what they are. Okay. They're also called chicken snakes for a good reason. They will raid your hen houses, and they will eat hen's eggs, as this one is trying to swallow a hen's egg. And main thing I wanted to do for this picture is I wanted you to look at the eye, and you can see the pupil. It's round, just like our pupils are round. All our non-venomous snakes have round pupils. Another type of rat snake, this one is also called the red rat snake, but it's called the corn snake more often, and that name comes from the belly, which we don't see here. And this is a typical one that we find up here in the Piedmont. In the lower part of the state, this grayish is more orangish, and they get to be very orange. And then this is very popular in the pet trade business, and people raise them, and they get all kinds of different color morphs of these snakes. The corn snake is smaller than the black rat snake or the eastern rat snake. The northern black racer, just like that lizard, it likes to run to get away. That's its defense, to try to get away from you. And this one was about 33 inches long, and see it spread out. They're the ones that you see scurrying across the road, or when you come upon them, they'll try to run away to save themselves. Snakes don't want to encounter people. They almost always come out on the losing end. Okay. Here's a rat snake, and I want to bring this. I've got this picture here because I was taking pictures of this rat snake, and I was lying on the ground this black racer, and I was lying on the ground trying to get a good picture of it from the side and all. And it kept trying to go away from me because that's what they try to do. And it was running away, and I kept getting it and pulling it back and kept pulling it back and pulling it back. This snake, and that's when I learned you can drive snakes berserk. They will go berserk. You drive people, they can go berserk too, but snakes can go berserk. This snake finally said, I can't get away from this thing. My only defense is that I will attack him. But at first it spread its neck. Instead of spreading it, squeezed it and flattened its. If I move my pointer, it goes to the old film. Anyway, it flattened it on the vertical side, made it look wider vertically, sort of like the animal males did to make themselves look bigger. And it's up there, and they hunt. They're hunters by sight, so it's looking. They raise their heads up, and it didn't attack me. It just stopped running away from me and started coming off me, and I'd have to keep pushing it away and taking the picture. So I finally got a good picture I wanted. And the poor snake, I let it loose after that, and I hope it didn't suffer terribly any psychological problems. This is a baby, what the babies look like. They got patterns on them too. They don't look like the adults. You think they're different species. Eastern king snake is our most commonly seen king snake, and of course they're called king snakes because they like to eat snakes, other snakes. I will mention back that black racer also eats about 40 or 50% of its diet is other snakes also. This snake was formerly called a chain king snake because of the patterning of these yellow marks here, and it sort of looked like a chain. And the lower part of the state, sometimes those bands there get much wider than they are more so up here. And there's just one good one from the side. You can see there, this one's got more yellow bandings, a little bigger, but I think it's still an upstate snake, I believe. And yeah, definitely, because there you can see this one. This is at our house. And it found a turtle nest. Most likely it was a box turtle, laid eggs. They like to eat eggs, snakes. They dig them up. We're using their heads as the tool. They'll dig it up and get the egg. And you can see the little egg right there. It takes them a long time to do it, to dig it out, but he digs it out. Okay, the coach whip. 60 years ago, coach whips were more abundant in Lawrence County than they are today. Specimens 6 to 7 feet in length were not uncommon. They're much skinnier than or slimmer than the rat snake, the eastern rat snake that's up there in length also. But you can see why they call a whip snake, because they're long and slender, and they call a coach whip because it sort of looks like that's the whip end and this is the handle end in their coloration. They're one of the few snakes that changes color along the length rather than along the sideways. And they also can raise their heads 2 or 3 feet off the ground because they're sight hunters, looking in the fields. And unfortunately, the last coach whip I found in Lawrence County was a roadkill in Hickory Tavern in 1990. However, I've heard some reliable sources of specimens being seen in the county since then, so there's still hope that the population may renew itself. I feel their large length and daytime hunting were major factors in the population decline, but we're not sure. They're very similar to the racer, but the racer's flourishing and the coach whip seems to have gone away, unfortunately. Okay, the last group, well, not the last group, but we're talking of non-venomous. We're talking about water snakes. We call them water snakes, but they're semi-aquatic, just like the turtles. And these snakes are often misidentified as cottonmouths or water moccasins. And this is the northern water snake, and it has 2 subspecies, and they're both found in Lawrence County, and so almost everyone is most likely, they're interbred. We're in the overlapping range of species, and you won't find a pure species. You can get a batch from the same group of eggs or from babies, and they'll look like the other morph or other species, which is called a midland water snake, because it's a little more toward the midland part of the country, supposedly. But both of these came from Lawrence County. And they look somewhat, good bit different. And did you notice the catfish it was eating in the first picture? So we already covered that. The red-bellied water snake. This species of snake seems to have been a native of the low country originally. And by the time I was a teen, they knew they had been moving up into the Saluda River, and now I found them in every county west of the Saluda, and they're probably in the east. I just haven't been looking that way. The brown water snake. Now, this is another species that was low country. Lived in swamps. They seemed to like swampy, still waters. Well, the very first specimen I found living in Lawrence County was at Ware Shoals at the Great Rapids, the place thought I would never see a brown water snake. Since that time, brown water snakes have moved into, at least up the Saluda River, and they're probably elsewhere. And you can find them quite easily in Lake Greenwood. And they look somewhat more like they're stouter, look more like a cottonmouth, and I'm sure everybody calls him a cottonmouth. But we're going to get to the venomous snakes here. But last one is the queen snake. We had the king snake, we got the queen snake. And I just got this picture of this snake. I knew they were here. I knew they were over in the western or the eastern area around in the Inaree Basin, but I hadn't gotten a picture of one, and I'd never seen one over in the west where I live until this year, and now I found one and got pictures of it. These queen snake, maybe I don't know why they call it a queen snake. Maybe it's because of what they eat. They eat mostly recently molted crayfish. You know, like we like soft-shell crabs and stuff. They like the soft crayfish. And that's what they feed on mostly. And they hide very easily, slip in the water very quickly and disappear. Now we talk about the venomous snakes. There are two species of copperhead snakes recognized in South Carolina, and the southern and the northern. But in Lawrence County is another overlapping of these things, and essentially all of them here are integrated. You'll see one in the same general location. You can find one that looks more like it's a northern, one that looks more like a southern. So this one and the one that I got pictures of was here, and it looks more like the southern that you find. It's got a lot of light coloring on it. And copperheads, if they're in dead, dry leaves, you can almost never pick them out. You see them. They are everywhere. They're one of our most common snakes, or they have been. And they don't want to do it. Their protection is not to be seen. They do not want you to see them. And they don't want to bite you either. However, that is their defense. And while we got this picture here, babies, I'll point out, the little babies have this yellow tail. They're born with this bright sulfur yellow tail. So if you see a little snake, a brown snake or something, and you think it's a copperhead or something, and it doesn't have that little yellow tail on it, it's not a copperhead. Now, here's another picture from my book, and this is the picture talking about copperheads in the history. You know what a copperhead was in the Civil War? There was a person in the North who sided with the South. And they put copper pennies in there, or copper coins in their hats to wear. So that's what this is illustrating in this book, the relationship of humans and copperheads being known in the Civil War. So pennies in a hat. But what I got the picture up here, I wanted you to look at this eye. Its pupil in its eye. That pupil is not round. I hope you can see it on that screen. It's much better up there. It's elliptical, like a cat's eye. All our venomous snakes in South Carolina are pit vipers, and they all of them, except the coral snake, are pit vipers. And all the pit vipers have that elliptical eye pupil. So you have to get pretty close to look at them. And of course, if it's in the dark, the whole eye will be looking like the pupil and you won't be able to tell anything. But if you shine a light on it, you know, they'll close up. So cottonmouths are typically found in the sand hills and lower parts of the state. I've never found one in Lawrence, Greenville, Abbeville counties. The closest documented report of a cottonmouth was in the lower part of Lake Thurmond, and that was by my son, Wynn. He found it and got pictures of it. We verified that it was a cottonmouth down there. And Lake Thurmond does spread up into the Piedmont some. So there's no telling whether it might spread, but they're not here. I've never seen one. This is a cottonmouth, if you not here, but this is their defense. Their defense is, again, they want to warn you off. They don't want you to bother them. And they open their mouth, and that white mouth stands out. They're in swamps most of the time, and that stands out. You also can see its fangs there. It's just gaping it out like that. It doesn't want you to come close to them. And the people have done, herpetologists have done studies on which snake, with these venomous snakes, will bite you if you eat the fastest. Well, the one that'll bite you the fastest, if you touch it or step on it, is a copperhead, because its only defense is not being seen. And if it thinks and can still think that you haven't seen it, you can step right beside it and never know it, and you never know it, and it won't be biting you. But if you touch it, step on it, it's going to bite you. And that's why so many people walking around in the dark at night, when the copperheads like to come out, especially in late summer, you don't want to be walking around barefoot. You want to have good shoes on. Don't walk around barefoot. Don't walk around in flip-flops and stuff like that. Their venom is not as bad as the other venomous snakes, but it's not a joke either. The cottonmouth, they found, wouldn't bite, sometimes even if you touched them with the boot or something. They just didn't want to. They don't want to get into fight with you. The timber or canebrake rattlesnake, same species, different name depending on what part of the country, South Carolina you're in. They seem to have been expatriated from Lawrence County probably when all the land was cleared and turned to agriculture, and the land eroded away and they were hunted and killed or something. But anyway, they seem to have disappeared. I've not seen any verified reports of them in here. But there could be. They're up in Greenville County, and they're down in Aiken County. And something could move one way or the other. There's been verified reports in Greenwood County. Just haven't seen one in Lawrence. There are another species I don't put here because I've never seen them in Lawrence County, and that is the pygmy rattlesnake, but I've found them over in McCormick County and Abbeville counties, and they are tiny little short, small rattlesnakes. Okay, that ends my discussion of the ascendance of the age of reptiles, which ended about 66 million years ago. In my October presentation, I discussed birds, which were the ascendants of the reptiles we call dinosaurs. Next, I'll be discussing mammals, which are the dominant class of animals today. So we live in the age of mammals. And mammals survived the age of reptiles. In my next part of my presentation on mammals, I'll be using a lot of videos, and I have a lighthearted 5-minute video that I'm going to put on the play. And during this time, feel free to get up, stretch your legs, take a break, whatever you need, or watch it. I think it's a wonderful video, but I made it. So anyway, so we'll take a little break right here, and in 5 minutes it should be over.
Piedmont region of the state. The county has a total area of 463,360 acres. The Raven Creek watershed contains 73,000 acres in Lawrence County and 12,500 acres of headwaters in neighboring Greenville County. The name Raven is currently spelled R-A-B-O-N. However, in past years, it has had dozens of name spellings. The original European name for the creek, as given by Scottish immigrants to the area during the 1700s, was two words, Ray and Burn. Burn, spelled B-U-R-N, is a Scottish word for a small river or large creek. Therefore, the given name is Ray, spelled R-A-E, which means a female deer. There are more than one raven in Scotland today. The largest raven is in southeastern Scotland, and its watershed size is comparable to South Carolina's raven. The name Rayburn can be interpreted as a place where does drink. You probably have noticed the bird flittering around the doe and her fawn. This is an eastern phoebe, Salornis phoebe. It is a year-round resident in the Raven Creek watershed. This species of flycatcher nests almost exclusively on man-made structures, including bridges and buildings. These are the birds that build the messy nests of mud, moss, and other debris. Unlike most other songbirds, they do not practice good sanitation around their nest. This phoebe is snatching flies and other insects that are flying around the deer, such as annoying deer flies. These little bloodsuckers are pests to deer, cattle, and humans. You will see more of this bird throughout this video.
Okay, I hope you didn't bore you too much. Pardon? I have no musical ability whatsoever. No, I got those online from paid for them. So now we're going to talk about mammals. Talk about mammals. Can you hear me now? Okay. With the snakes, I started in going from the smallest to the larger ones, generally. And then on the mammals, I'm going to start with the largest and go down to the smallest. And I point out, I don't have a complete list of all the mammals, so I'm only the ones that I've got some pictures of and know a little something about that I'll put up here. But hope to find more. And again, a little video won't last that long. Notice it's twice the normal speed. This is a doe and a newborn fawn, and you notice it's trying to get something to eat, and she's trying to clean it up. So this one is very recently born. And of course, mammals are called mammals because they have mammillary glands. Yeah, you have to be very fortunate in getting the video like the first one I showed there of the deer jumping around. They just lined up and stayed in view most of the time so well. This one, I wish I had camera was 5 feet away, but if I'd moved it away, they might have gotten closer to it. You just never know. Okay, bison. This is an image of a bison in Lawrence County that I photographed. However, it's not a wild bison, of course. I think it was probably during the buffalo, or what do they call it? Buffalo beef, anyway. Beefalo, that's what they called it. Okay, there's no historical evidence that bison were found in Lawrence County, nor any bone or fossil evidence that I know of. And I did a lot of searching for it. For mammals, like I say, I'm going on size, and the bison is the largest one that we might have had. They might have passed through. Bisons roamed around a lot, but they certainly weren't like some people describe as everywhere, and they made all these massive trails, at least not during the colonial time. Now, the black bear, that's not in Lawrence County, just because I don't have a picture of it, but that's from my daughter-in-law's yard up in Asheville. But the black bear was found in Lawrence County and surely in the colonial times, and today it's recovering its former range. The South Carolina Department of Natural Resources lists black bears as having a sustainable population today in the northwestern part of Lawrence County. They've been seen in every county in the whole state, but now they are seen more frequently, and they're probably breeding here. The manager of Lake Rabun Park, I talked with him, and he showed me an image of one that he caught there of the bear walking around the park there. So they'll probably be here sooner or later, like wild hogs are now. They've been in Lawrence a long time, and they're getting more. They're even down in our property now. This is from our place. Domesticated hogs were introduced to South Carolina by the conquistador Hernando de Soto in the early 1500s and by later colonial immigrants. Some of these hogs escaped and established sustainable wild populations. Wild hog populations are now well entrenched in Lawrence County. And here's a baby we just saw last week coming up in our yard or driveway. Okay, so going down in size, the cougar. People always talk about seeing cougars, but there's no documented evidence that they're in Lawrence County or anywhere up in the upstate, or even in South Carolina. If my memory serves me correctly, the last documented cougar in South Carolina was killed in the early 1800s, or right before 1800. But this cougar is in a cage on the side of Lake Greenwood, or it was when I took the picture. But it's not a wild animal. And so next we have the white-tailed deer, and we got seen a lot of white-tailed deer, and they're beautiful animals. Love to see them jumping around. There's a piebald deer, fawn. They usually don't grow to adulthood because they're so easily seen. And here's a video of them, sort of a bucks on parade here from behind our house. They see the camera and say, "Hey, what is that? I hear it making a little noise, but what the heck is it?" Nothing they be afraid of, so they go on. The red wolf were reported seen by Lawson. I think maybe his name was John. I can't remember. But in the late 1600s, he described them as being very unimpressive terms like mangy, flea-ridden animals. They were eliminated in the United States, but they've got small populations, like they have one restored using Mexican red wolves up in North Carolina, and I think that's where that picture came from. And okay, the beaver. Believe it or not, the beaver's bigger than a coyote. We ain't got the coyotes, have we? Beavers weren't here when I was little. I never did see them. Maybe they were around someplace, but I never saw one. But now they are pretty much everywhere and easy to see. And here's a little video. And there's a raccoon this is again on our property, and you see the beaver coming out there. And it wants to know what that raccoon's doing. But this video has a surprise ending, so look at it closely there, and you'll see the surprise ending. You see it? There goes a snake. It scared a snake up. Can't get rid of it. Okay, finally, we get the Wile E. Coyote. They were expatriated from eastern United States, but they've been making a great comeback, moving eastward, and now they are in Lawrence and well entrenched. There's many, many, many of them here. I have a great video, I think, if you hadn't seen one close. Here's what the actual wild coyote looks. And I did cheat on this when I put a little bit of food out there, and he smelled the food, so it stood around and is looking to see where's that smell coming from? Or she, don't know which it is. But beautiful animal. And bobcat. I'm really lucky on this best picture of bobcat, and it's swimming. It is actually swimming in that little creek the deer was jumping around having fun on, but it's flooded, and I think it was hunting probably wood duck. It was swimming down the creek looking at the sides. It goes down and it turns into Raven Creek and swims on up. And otters, we got otters now. I didn't see those. They probably were always here a little bit somewhere, but they're back now a good bit. Be seen fairly easily. And raccoons, they've always been with us. They come up and visit us all the time. And they have sweet teeth. They love sugar water. Okay. Armadillo. Armadillos they were a species that were never here that we know of. And they have moved eastward, and now they're all over the southeast. When I went out to Texas and drove through Mississippi and saw all these dead armadillos up in the northern part of Mississippi, I thought to myself, well, they're not confined by having to have warm weather in dry desert areas. And so they've been steadily coming. We've known for decades that they were coming, and now they are here, and they are almost everywhere. I can't walk around hardly anywhere and not see an armadillo hole where they dig little hideouts when they out hunting and they want to get away or rest. Now, armadillos have a very interesting but very successful reproduction strategy. They only have only one fertilized embryo is allowed to develop. And it immediately splits into 4 identical twins, or identical quads. And I was lucky to get a picture of these, 4 of them, and if you see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Out hunting, they're about ready to be weaned. They're still around where their nest was that they were born in, but they moved away fairly quickly after this, I expect. And armadillos are well armed, and they're not just little things to fool with. They're very strong front legs, and well armored. The 9 bands, that's where the name comes from. And look at this tail. When they're trying to get away from an enemy or something they perceive and they're running away, they take that tail and they switch it from side to side, back and forth. And I expect a dog or anything that comes up there and gets whopped by that is not going to like it. But I do believe coyotes are eating them, which is good to have a predator for them. The groundhog, I always thought that there must be some surviving in Lawrence County somewhere. And earlier in this century, I found a roadkill one. And so I've been looking since then, and I was lucky enough a couple years ago, I got one picture of one in Lawrence, down near Sanders School. And so they are making a comeback, and I hear more reports of people seeing them now. The red fox. Now, the red fox is an introduced species. It's not native to here. It was brought over by the colonists and the rich that wanted to have their fox hunts. And now they're all over, pretty much all over the United States, or in Canada and places. Here's a live one. I mean, the other one was live, but that's in that night light. They don't show it too well. Okay, the striped skunk. This one's pretty much white all over. They have stripes, usually 2 stripes, one on each side, but they can sometimes be all white or almost all black. And you can see here's a female with 2 babies marching, and they have very little of a stripe there. And I've seen them totally white also. The gray fox is our only native fox. It's smaller than the red fox and is more secretive. It can also climb trees, and they love persimmons. These are in a pen enclosure, an exhibit area. Now, that's not a pretty picture, but I've got that up there because even dead animals on the road can provide important information about range and populations of animals. And we do have a lot of roadkill. The opossum is our only marsupial. Like the kangaroo, it has a pouch. And if you look closely down here, you can see the babies, or their tails and little pieces of them there. They're just about to fall out of the pouch. They are scavengers, and they end up as roadkill often because they're out there scavenging roadkill. That was a baby possum. Cottontail rabbits, boy, they're the food source for a lot of animals, predators. We have bunches of them too, and you'd be surprised how active they are after night. Put a camera out and look at them sometime. The mink. The only mink sighting I've had in Lawrence County was in the 1960s when I almost caught one on my father's farm. But I tried to catch it, didn't have anything, and it got away. But I hadn't seen one since here, but I know other people have seen them. And this image I got down at the salt marsh near in the lower part of the state. Now, the spotted skunk. I've never seen this. Well, I take it back. I think I saw a spotted skunk, a baby spotted skunks, back in the late 1950s, but I can't be sure that's a real memory. Or maybe I misinterpreted what I was seeing. But about 20 years ago, I learned that there were no recorded sightings of spotted skunks in Lawrence County. So ever since then, I've been looking at roadkill. Every roadkill skunk that was small, that might be a spotted skunk, I try to look at it and see if it is a spotted skunk, and I hadn't found one, unfortunately. Their numbers seem to be declining in the east considerably. They're much smaller. And if you notice, the next animal is a fox squirrel. So it's just barely bigger than the fox squirrel. That's how small spotted skunks are. The fox squirrel is our largest squirrel, and I'm sure they were here in Lawrence County. They probably have been over in the national park area, but I don't get over there too much. I found one finally and got a picture of it in Lawrence down near Waterloo. But I couldn't find the image, unfortunately, when preparing this presentation, so I couldn't put it in here. So I had to put one from the lower part of the state. But it wasn't a great image because it was from afar, but it was hopping across a railroad track, and I saw that big thing, and I said, "What is?" I was looking for a fox, and I thought maybe it's a gray fox, but no, it was a fox squirrel, which is great. We have muskrats. This is, I think, a juvenile. They're a lot bigger than any of the true rats, and they're rounder heads. They're pretty gentle. They swim around in the waters, and they dig holes in ponds and banks and stuff too. This is down at a landing on Lake Greenwood. Of course, the gray squirrel is just everywhere. Everybody knows about gray squirrels. Now, the southern flying squirrel, it's not uncommon, but they're really hard to get photographs of because they're mostly active at night. And it's hard to get pictures at night, or in the dark. When I lived in my ancestral Cunningham house off of 221 down there, the whole house was hopping with them. We'd get up at night and have to chase them away. This one is obviously in a cage, and I've forgotten where I got that picture. Chipmunks, kind of hard to find in the forest, but they're there. And this one was hiding from a cat. The hispid cotton rat is our largest rat that we typically see, native rat. And it's very common. And the name hispid comes from the texture of their hair. They look sort of like a brush. That's just what the hispid means. And they can be found in almost every pasture or field that's around anywhere in Lawrence County, I expect. And if the field were burned off like people used to do sometimes, you would see their paths. The whole field will be marked with their highways. You can see little highways, like rat highways everywhere. They're very common. The deer mouse, and this is an adult, and here's a picture of an adult and a baby. The baby's born grayish colored. And the deer mouse and the next mouse, the white-footed mouse, which you'll see a picture in a minute, they are very hard to tell apart. And you have to look at teeth and other things usually. And it's very difficult to say which one's which. But we seem to have both of them. Here's one that I think pretty much sure is the white-footed mouse as opposed to the deer mouse. Oh boy. Now this is the golden mouse. Is a wonderfully cute rodent. They are arboreal. That means they live in bushes and trees. And they're really cute. And I've never known one to bite me or anything. And they're gold. They're not really golden, but they're this color. It's just nice, beautiful color. They're just really cute mice, mammals. And they build nests in the bushes and trees, sort of like a squirrel nest, but much more elaborate. And they have a hole at the bottom that they jump out of if danger comes. And we missed one real quick. It changed faster than I wanted, but the little mouse, field mouse. And now this is a jumping mouse. And it's the only one I've seen in Lawrence County or anywhere in the East. I see them on films out west, and you always have the rattlesnake and stuff hunting jumping mice. Well, we got jumping mice. We got two species probably, the meadow and the woodland. But I could not tell from the photograph, and I got this mouse dead from a cat, house cat, and I can't decide which species it is. And we probably got both species. Voles are another little mouse-like creature. They got not so pointed noses, and they're not very big. You see how small they are, and they got little short tails. And they live under boards and stuff, and you'll see their paths and stuff if you turn over boards and stuff, looking for snakes, because the snakes are under there looking for the voles. And getting this presentation ready, I found that I had neglected to get a picture of a mole. I couldn't believe it. I didn't have any picture of a mole. so I had to go borrow one. But this is our common eastern mole, and I know the picture's distorted by being a head-on shot. You got a lot of distortion, but they do have very big, strong feet there. That's where all their work is done, and little short noses. Now, shrews. Shrews are the mammals as hummingbirds are to birds. They're tiny dynamos of energy. Instead of feeding upon sugars, though, shrews are carnivores. They're not rodents. They eat other little animals of some sort. And like the hummingbirds, they got to eat a lot every day, and if they don't, they'll starve to death very quickly. And they're very small. This is the short tail, and you can see a little bit of their teeth looking up at you there. And here's what their size is. What is that? 2.5 inches long, and so on. Short tail. And then we got one that's even smaller than that, the least shrew. Now we get to the bats, the flying mammals. And I was really fortunate to be able to capture a flying bat. And a red bat is a fairly large bat. And the thing here is just, look at that wing. Doesn't it look like a flying dinosaur wing? They're basically the same mode. Evolution repeats itself. Here's some brown bats hanging out during the day underneath a floor somewhere. And here's a hoary bat that my son and his grandson found. So I don't have too many bats because I don't put up netting and stuff like that to catch them. And, of course, they can carry rabies and stuff, so you have to be careful with them. So that ends my talk. I appreciate everybody showing up, and I hope you got some fun out of some of this and information. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Are there any questions?
Well, thank you so much for coming, and please come back to the museum. We got things going on all the time. 2 things this Tuesday and Thursday of next week, and all of Gene's, that we have note cards and postcards of some images of Gene's. They are absolutely beautiful. All of his prints are for sale, and all the proceeds go to the museum. So he has been very, very gracious about doing that. The museum is open downstairs, isn't it, Connie? So if you want to see the display that we have of Gene's photographs, please feel free to wander around for the next few minutes. And thank you so much for coming.